All right. How's everybody doing? Hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show, and host of the Michael Imhotep show. So today is Saturday, April 29th, 2017, and we're live today. So we're doing an overview, and we should be on Facebook Live right now also. So we're doing an overview of an online course that I teach called Ancient Kemet, the Moors and the Maafa. Ancient Kemet, the Moors and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Okay. Okay, so I just want to test everything. Everything's good. We're broadcasting on Facebook Live also. So how's everybody doing? I'm going to monitor your comments on Facebook Live. I'll monitor those on my phone. Okay. All right. So this is an overview of a 10-hour, 4-week course that I teach online. And a class meets on Thursdays, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Okay, and all the sessions are recorded. We do the class live. You can ask questions, join us in the live chat for the class, and then all the sessions are recorded. So if you miss anything, you can go back and watch what you miss. Okay. And hopefully everybody can hear me all right. And I do a visual presentation. We have a PowerPoint presentation, video clips, articles, books, all of that information is in the course. So I'm going to show you a PowerPoint presentation today. We'll do an overview of this course, okay? And then you can register for the course also if you like as well. And when we deal with the transatlantic slave trade, we cannot deal with it episodically. We cannot deal with it episodically. It's not an episode that just happens in history. We have to understand that the transatlantic slave trade is the culmination of a sequence of historical events that led up to a particular event happening. It's the culmination of a sequence of historical events that lead up to another event happening. Okay, this is extremely important because some people approach it episodically. And some of the things we deal with in the course, we deal with the African presence in this country that we call the United States of America, going back at least 51,700 years ago, at least 51,700 years ago. And we're going to talk about a discovery made in 2004 in Allendale County, South Carolina, that deals with this. But also, we'll talk about the discovery made. In San Diego that was just revealed this past Wednesday. Okay, it was just revealed April 26th, and this is dealing with an African presence going back at least 130,000 years ago in California. Okay, and there's a big debate over this. I just got off the phone with Dr. David Imhotep, who wrote the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. And we were discussing this. I'm going to interview him on my radio show coming up very soon also. Okay. So how's everybody doing today? Let's go ahead and get started in monitoring things here on Firefox, because this is acting up here. Okay, so let's restart Firefox. I'm going to bring on my presentation here. And I'm going to show you some of the articles written about this story dealing with this discovery made in San Diego, okay, because this was a huge discovery, all right? Okay, so in the course, we deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors. We can't start the history of our country. We can't start the history of African people in this country in slavery. We were here before August 20th, 1619 happened, contrary to popular belief. Yes, August 20th, 1619 happened, but African people were in this land we call the United States of America. We were here tens of thousands of years before that, okay? So it's inaccurate to start our history there. And we deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors, and how this set Christopher Columbus up to on his 4 voyages as well, in the technology that the Moors are introducing into Europe. It helps set Columbus up on his 4 voyages, and helps Columbus set sail on the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria, etc. Okay, August 3rd, 1492. And then how Columbus helped to lay the foundation for slavery, racism, capitalism, the exploitation of indigenous people, and how Columbus opens up the so-called New World to other European nations coming in and exploiting these various nations. Okay, we're just talking about Haiti, Jamaica, Cuba, Puerto Rico, the Bahamas, Panama, Honduras, etc. All right, and one of the things we deal with in the course also is how, contrary to popular belief, Columbus never came to the land we call the United States of America. Contrary to popular belief, Columbus never came to the land that we call the United States of America. This is why we have to stop lying to our children, telling them that Columbus discovered America. That's not true at all. It's not true at all. Columbus never came to this land that we call the United States of America. Okay. All right. So let me turn on the screen share here so you can see. And let me see, we corrected this here with Twitter. We corrected this here. All right. Not with Twitter, but with okay, we'll get this up here. All right, so how's everybody doing today? Saturday, weekend, so thanks for joining us. All right, let's go to this clip here. Let's turn on screen share. Okay, so this is an overview of our 10-hour course. And this came out of a presentation that I did back in 2014 called Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Okay, so I'm the founder of the African History Network. This is Michael Imhotep, for those who are not familiar with me. I'm the founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, host of the Michael Imhotep show on the Empowerment Radio Network also. And at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's corrects wrong behavior, okay? Because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. All right, and if you want to bring me in to do a presentation for your group or organization, email me at info@africanhistorynetwork.com, info@africanhistorynetwork.com, all right? Okay, so this is the presentation that I did back January 24th, 2014. There's a 2 DVD set. It's 4.5 hours. This is about 7 years of research here. Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, but they didn't teach in school. And all of my DVD lectures are available at my website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, if you want to order any of them. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, all right? I'm on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation here in Detroit, radio station I'm on. So we're on Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the African History Network show. And every Thursday morning, I'm on the morning show, 7 a.m. to 8:30 a.m., Wake Up with Steve Hood. All right. And when you visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, you can listen to podcasts of our shows, etc. We have the information how to listen to the shows live as well. So over the past 7 years, these are just a few of the people I've interviewed over the past 7 years. Everybody from some of my teachers like Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Professor Kabahaya Kamene, Dr. David Imhotep, who I just talked about. He wrote the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. Professor James Small. You've heard me interview a lot of these people in the past. I've also interviewed Dr. Phil Valentine, Dr. Francis Cress Wilson, who wrote the ISIS papers, Tony Browder, Runoko Rashidi, Dr. Ray Hagan, Scheherazade Ali, Darren DeWitt Henson from the TV show Soul Food. Used to be on the air on Showtime. And he's a choreographer also. So I've interviewed a lot of people. If you go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, you can, we have over 700 podcasted episodes of the shows here you can listen to, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Okay. Now, this is Dr. John Henrik Clarke. Dr. John Henrik Clarke is one of our great Grandmaster Scholar warriors. Dr. Clarke taught us that all history is a current event. Everything that's ever happened continues to happen in some shape, form, or fashion. All history is a current event. Everything that's ever happened continues to happen in some shape, form, or fashion. He was also, he's also in the documentary Make It Plain about Malcolm X. He was good friends with Malcolm X. And he's in that documentary, Make It Plain. So check that out. Make It Plain is on YouTube. Okay, you can check it out on YouTube. It's one of the best documentaries about Malcolm X. He was good friends with Malcolm. And also Dr. Yosef Ben Yakinen was a teacher to Malcolm as well, Dr. Ben. He met Dr. Ben through Dr. Clarke. And then you had the documentary, Great and Mighty Walkabout. They deal with thousands of years of history. All right, so let's continue here. And so a lot of people ask, how do you pronounce your last name? So last name is Imhotep, I-M-H-O-T-E-P, Imhotep, okay? Imhotep is one of the greatest people who ever lived in human history. Imhotep means he who comes in peace in the ancient Medu-Neter language, the ancient language of the ancient Kemetic people or the ancient Egyptians. Kemet is one of the original terms for the land we call Egypt. Kemet meaning land of the blacks. Egypt is an Arabic word, a Greek derivation coming from the Medu-Neter term Kupata, which means the land of the temple of Ptah. And then the Greeks called it Egyptos, A-I-G-Y-P-T-O-S, Egyptos. The Romans called it Egyptus, A-E-G-Y-P-T-U-S, Egyptus, and the Arabs called it Egypt. If you read Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization by Tony Browder, page 268 in the glossary, he has the definition for Egyptos and he breaks down that history. But Imhotep was one of the greatest people who ever lived in human history. He was a architect for the step pyramid for Nesubiti-Zoser in the 3rd dynasty. He was a high priest, a physician, a mathematician, designer of the step pyramid. We did not call them pharaohs. Nesubiti would be the correct term. Pharaoh's an Asian term that originates around the 19th dynasty, the Asian term. He was so designer of the step pyramid for Nesubiti-Zoser in the 3rd dynasty. He's also known as the world's first multi-genius. Now, depending upon which timeline of history that you use, you'll see him living anywhere around 2700 BC to 3000 BC. From anywhere around 2700 BC to 3000 BC. Because we know at least 130,000 years of our history has been stolen. Because we know at least 130,000 years of our history has been stolen, I go with the oldest dates I can find, okay? So you're looking at around 3000 BC, okay? And when you look at the discovery, there are 2 discoveries dealing with 130,000 years. You have one from the Greek island of Crete, that came about back in 2011. We'll talk about that. Then you have one from that came out Wednesday, April 26th, and this is causing a lot of controversy. And the more research they do, the deeper they dig, the blacker the planet gets. The more research they do, the older we get. Okay, and this is causing them to have to keep pushing back dates. And they keep trying to suppress this information. But the more they try to suppress it, the more it comes out. Okay, so they keep having to push dates back, and this is really, really scaring people because it's shaking uh, a lot of their foundations that are pushed in anthropology and pushed in archaeology, which are two very racist disciplines. Okay. All right. So let me go back. Okay. So this is Imhotep, and this is not Imhotep. In the 2001 blockbuster movie, The Mummy Returns, the villain's name was Imhotep. So consequently, many of our children think that one of our greatest ancestors was evil and not of African descent. Okay. So in the movie, The Mummy Returns, the villain was played by, one of the villains was played by an actor named Arnold Vosloo. Arnold Vosloo. Okay. And in the movie, he looks to be Eurasian, Arab, something like this, right? He plays a high priest in ancient Egypt named Imhotep, okay? And he's a villain in the movie. So many of our children see this. And another thing that this does is it paints ancient Egypt in a negative light as well, okay? It paints ancient Egypt in a negative light also. Okay, so this is why we have to really be careful of the images that we allow our children to consume, because the media and the television, that's the #1 way that European white supremacist images are fed to our children, okay? The media and the television. So we really, really have to be cognizant and careful of these images that we allow our children to consume, okay? All right. So we're going to continue here. And I want to show you a study, because I've been studying media for 25 years, all right? I've been studying media for 25 years. So I want to show you a study that deals with the negative impact that television watching has on our children. Now, yes, there's some positive TV shows they could watch. Totally understand that. Totally agree with that. You won't get any argument with me over that, okay? But there's a lot of BS on the television, on the television. You call it the television. I call it television, because it's a vision that tells lies, okay? The television. All right, now, I'm going to go to this next study. And if you see the shirt that I'm wearing, it says Black Friday, what legacy will you leave? Let me blow up the screen so you can see the shirt. It says Black Friday, what legacy will you leave? Okay, so Black Friday is a documentary that I'm in. I'm in, I think, 6 or 7 documentaries. There's 3 documentaries are coming out this year that I'm in. So Black Friday is a documentary that I'm in. I'm in the first Black Friday the remix, and then I just talked to the director, Rick Mathis. I just talked to him this week, so I'll be in Atlanta the 3rd weekend in July, 2017, at the Liberated Minds Black Homeschool and Education Expo. And while I'm there in Atlanta, we're going to film my portion of Black Friday 2. But Black Friday is a documentary that deals with 2 main things. #1, understanding where our concepts of money come from and how to create intergenerational wealth. And #2, for African Americans, #2, Black Friday deals with strategies to recycle our $1.3 trillion economy. Strategies to recycle our $1.3 trillion economy. Okay, this would this is what the documentary Black Friday deals with. All right, and in the documentary, we have Professor Kaba Hiawatha Kamene, formerly known as Booker T. Coleman, Dr. Claude Anderson. We got Dr. George Frazier, hip hop artist David Banner, Warren Ballantyne, one of my radio mates, Warren Ballantyne, talk show host. A lot of people are here. Dave Anderson, founder of the Empowerment Radio Network. A lot of people in the documentary. Okay, Dr. Umar Johnson's in there as well. Tony Browder. We're all in that documentary. So you can visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. If you decide you want to order that documentary. And we have other documentaries at our website as well, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can check that out, okay? All right, so we just posted the information here, link here, how to register for the online course also that I'm teaching as well. So you can check that out also. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. This is, we're doing, for those just tuning in, we're doing an overview. This is about an hour and a half overview or so of a 10-hour, 5-week course that I teach. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And we deal with thousands of years of history, and we deal with historical events leading up to the transatlantic slave trade happening, so we could better understand it, and then also deal with how to empower ourselves and deal with economic empowerment, political empowerment, etc. We deal with all that in the course. All right, so this study right here, okay, I've been studying media for 25 years, the effects of the medium, my degrees in business administration with a major in marketing. Been studying African history, African American history, entrepreneurship, economic empowerment, and media for 25 years. So the state of the African American consumer from September 2011 did a study, and they found that this was done by A.C. Nielsen, okay? This study appeared in the State of the African American Consumer. Now, this is a study that comes out each year. So check this out: the State of the African American Consumer. But the 2011 edition from A.C. Nielsen, and this is the Nielsen company that calculates the Nielsen ratings that TV networks get and TV shows, things like this, to determine, so they can determine their advertising rates. They found that African American adults 18 to 49 watch 7.2 hours of TV a day. That's 50 hours a week. That's a full-time job plus 10 hours of overtime that you don't get paid to do. Okay, that's a full-time job plus 10 hours of overtime that you don't get paid to do. And then they learn it, and African-American children watch 5 hours and 54 minutes of television a day. And they learn this from their parents. They learn these habits from their parents. So that's 42 hours a week. This is the number one way that European white supremacist images are fed to our children, okay? Now, there was an article that came out June 14th, 2012 from blackamericaweb.com. And this article dealt with a study that dealt with the effects that TV watching has on the self-esteem of children. And the name of this article was TV Kills Black Boys' Self-Esteem. TV Kills Black Boys' Self-Esteem. This is from June 14, 2012. And it says, a new, precise, and exhaustive year-long study finds that watching television regularly distorts and ultimately destroys the self-esteem of young Black males, who often find themselves comparing one another to the characters they view on air, leaving them feeling trapped, as if there are, quote, very few positive life paths they can aspire to, end quote. Very few positive life paths they can aspire to. This was a study that was done, okay? And when you look, when you read this article, you find out that they talk about how TV negatively impacts the self-esteem of African-American girls and white girls also. CNN had an article about about this same study. The name of CNN's article was TV Boost White Boy Self-Esteem Study Says. TV Boost White Boy Self-Esteem Study Says. And in the article, citing the study, it said that white boys were the only ones who had their self-esteem boosted by watching television, because they saw images of themselves being doctors and attorneys and scientists and saving the world and living in mansions and things like this. They saw positive images of themselves overall in the media, whereas African-American children and white girls did not see these images on the same level, and TV definitely damaged their self-esteem. We can see with women how they are taught to try to subscribe to this European standard of beauty of a thin, blonde, woman. Sometimes you have to get plastic surgery to achieve this standard of beauty, things like this. So check out this article, because we have to understand the impact that these images have on our children. And we also have to understand this is why you have a proliferation of the slave themed movies. Also, we're going to get to this. The slave themed movies and the slave TV shows, they help keep you in a slave mentality. We'll get to this in a minute as well. Okay. All right. Now, this is a picture of the Step Pyramid at Saqqara that Imhotep was a designer of, and the Subiti Zoger. This is one of the early types of pyramids. It's called a mastaba, a flat bench. Mastaba means flat bench. This is called a mastaba, which means flat bench. Okay, and you'll see pyramid technology. You'll see this evolve over hundreds of years. So when you see the pyramids of Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure at Giza, you'll see those pyramids are different. They're more sloped, more intricate in design, etc. So pyramid building technology evolves over hundreds of years, thousands of years. And you're going to find more pyramids. There are more pyramids in the Sudan, or what was called Nubia, than are in Egypt today. So you have about 125 or so in Egypt, 125, 135, but about 235 in the Sudan. Because the Sudan, or what was called Nubia or Ta-Nehesi, is the mother of ancient Kemet, of ancient Egypt. The grandmother is Ethiopia. All right, now, one of the things we do in the course, we deal with a lot of dates, and you have to understand dating systems. So what I try to do is lay a good foundation, because I know people are coming with different levels of understanding of history. And we deal with BC and AD dates. If you don't really understand them, you'll get confused on a lot of things. But the concept of BC and AD, this dating system, was formulated in the 8th century AD by an English monk named Bede, B-E-D-E. He was known as the Venerable Bede. Okay. Okay, so Perry Alexander on Facebook said, we can talk all we want, but overall we lack financial and political. We lack financial and political action. Well, some of us do. Speak for yourself. Some of us don't. See, I'm on the board of Grits and Politics here in Detroit. So a lot of people engage economically and politically. We deal with this in the course. So you must be new to me. But my degree is in business administration. Trust me, I know exactly what I'm doing. Okay, I've been doing this for 25 years. So we deal with economic empowerment, political empowerment. The foundation is African history and culture, which gives you your VIPs, your values, your interests, and your principles. The foundation is African history and culture, which gives you your VIPs, your values, your interests, and your principles. So we have a $1.3 trillion economy. No, we ain't only a few, there's a lot of us. You should get out more often. There's a whole lot of us. You should get out more often. And I have 970,000 followers on this Facebook page. There's a lot of us. You should get out more often. So what we have to understand is that we have to have a synthesis of the African history and culture. We have to have a synthesis of the history and culture, economic empowerment, and political empowerment. It's not just one. We have a 1.3, our annual income for African Americans is $1.3 trillion. 97% of that is spent with people that don't look like us, because the foundation, the history and culture, which gives you your values, your interests, and your principles, which teaches you that the only way that you're going to survive is through self-reliance. For the most part, that's been stripped away from us. Every other ethnic group in this country, for the most part, they have their history and culture intact. And they use it to fight for scarce wealth, power, and resources, and create an economic base for them to springboard off of to get into other fields, things like this. Okay, this is something we don't understand, because our history and culture, for the most part, have been taken away from us. So we deal with all this in the course, and this is what. But the foundation is history. The foundation is history and culture. We could have a $5.3 trillion economy. If this foundation is not in place, we'll still be spending 97% of our dollars with people that don't look like us. And investing in the stock market is not going to save African Americans. I'm all for investing in the stock market. That's good. But Black people putting green dollars in white-owned businesses, financing white folks' dreams, is not economic empowerment either. You could create wealth, but wealth and economic empowerment are two different things. See, all African Americans, we could have a investment portfolio worth $5 million today. Overnight, we have investment portfolio worth $5 million, right? In the stock market, bonds, mutual funds, whatever. You could have that and still spend 97% of your dollars with people that don't look like you. So just investing in the stock market is not going to save Black people. Just investing in the stock market is not going to save African people, because we could all have a net worth of $5 million, have stocks. The stock market is over 20,000 setting records, right? We could have all that, have a net worth of $5 million and still spend 97% of our dollars with people that don't look like us. So having an increased net worth does not automatically translate into controlling the economics in your community and owning the businesses, owning the land, owning the grocery stores, the gas stations, the radio stations, the TV stations, the newspapers, the dry cleaners, the car washes, controlling the school system, controlling the politics, controlling the police department, owning the media. We own 1/35,000th of all the media outlets in the country. So just having increased wealth does not automatically translate into economic empowerment for African Americans. This is why we have to understand the difference. Okay. This is why we have to understand. This is one of the reasons why I'm in this documentary, Black Friday. This is one of the many documentaries. I mean, I'm also in Resurrecting Black Wall Street, The Blueprint, from Dr. Boyce Watkins and Your Black World Films. Okay, just for people who may not be familiar with it. All right, I'm also in this documentary. You can order all these at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right, Resurrecting Black Wall Street, The Blueprint. And check out the Black Friday documentaries and Black Friday Part 2, which I'll be filming my portion of when I'm in Atlanta, July 2017 at the Black Homeschooling Conference. That's gonna blow people away. All right. Okay, so let's continue. But I had to say that because I know some people think that just Black people investing green dollars in white-owned businesses is somehow going to save us or close the wealth gap. First of all, if you invest in the white-owned businesses, if you gain wealth, you think you're not increasing the wealth of their businesses also? So the wealth has to be transformed into economic empowerment, into businesses, into real estate, etc. Okay, so back to this. Okay, so with the dating system, BC and AD, right? BC means before Christ. BC dates count down, AD dates count up. Okay, BC dates count down, AD dates count up. All right, and AD does not mean after death. AD means Anno Domini, in the year of our Lord. Anno Domini, in the year of our Lord. Okay. Now you have some scholars like Tony Browder, and we use 2 of his books in our course. It's not, you don't have to buy the books to be able to follow along in the course or learn anything like that. You don't have to have read the books to be able to understand what we're talking about. We're dealing with sections of the book. I'll go over it with you. You could buy the books if you want to for your personal library. It's not a requirement to follow in the class, understand what we're talking about, anything like that. Okay. But Tony Browder and Dr. Molefi Keti Asante and others, there's an effort to use dating systems like BCE, which means before the Common Era, BCE, which means before the Common Era, and ACE, which means after the Common Era, to get away from the Christian dating system. Okay, so you'll see this also. When you see some books that have that, you won't be confused. You know what they're talking about. Okay, and we'll post a link here again. If you want more information on this course, you want to register for it. As soon as you register for it, you'll be able to watch the first 7 hours that we have recorded. And this class meets on Thursdays, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the class is live, it's online, and all the sessions are recorded. You can go back and watch them over and over again. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Now, anytime, and I teach the course. Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, okay? All right, so we just posted a link there that says register here. And the course is only $40. Entire course, $40. And it will blow you away. You'll learn a lot of things you did not know, okay? All right, now anytime I do a presentation, I know I'm gonna say some things people never heard before. Probably say some things people don't like, probably say some things people disagree with. I usually have people put their fingers together to form a circle. I usually say something like this. I learned this from one of my teachers, Dr. Ray Hagins. The space inside this circle represents my realm of knowledge. Everything that I think I know about whatever I think I know is represented within the circumference of the circle. I must keep in mind that there are still things to know that exist outside the circumference of my own awareness, okay? Now, the reason why I say this is because oftentimes when people hear something that contradicts what they've been taught, what they believe, or what they think they know, they automatically reject it without doing any research to determine the validity of the new information that they're learning. And at the same time, they usually don't use that same level of scrutiny to analyze, critique, or reevaluate what it is they believe or what they think they know. So just because you know everything that you know about what you know does not mean you know everything there is to know about what you know. There's still things that exist outside the circumference of your own awareness, all right? Okay, and I had to be cognizant of time because I had to teach a class today from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Great African Women in History, the Mothers of Civilization. I have to teach that class today from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. That's another online course that I teach. That's a 6-hour course, 3 consecutive Saturdays. It's 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. We deal with some well-known and some not so well-known African women in our history. Deal with different profiles of African women in our history. We do a lot of history as well. Everybody, we go from ancient times. Everybody from we do a Queen T, almost Nefertari, Aset, who the Greeks called Isis, Dinknesh, who the Europeans called Lucy, 3.2 million years old. Deal with Fannie Lou Hamer, Coretta Scott King, Katherine Johnson, who the movie Hidden Figures is partly based upon. So we deal with a lot of women. So I have to teach that today from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Okay, so we'll post a link for that also if you want to register for that course. That course is only $20. Okay, Nita Sunshine, how you doing? Somebody said something about the Gregorian calendar. Let me try to get this question here on the Gregorian calendar. What they say? That's good. The whole world doesn't use the Gregorian calendar system. Yeah. Well, the Gregorian calendar was introduced in 1582 by Pope Gregory XIII. This was designed to correct the inaccuracies of Sosthenes when the Julian calendar was introduced. Julian calendar is introduced around 46 BC, if I remember correctly, by Julius Caesar. Okay, the Julian calendar. And when he did his calculations, Sosthenes, when he did his calculations, the year was off by like 11 minutes and some seconds. And over the course of hundreds of years, by the time 1500 came around, when they celebrated Easter was off from the vernal equinox, which is March 20th or March 21st. It was off by about 14 days. So the coming out of the Council of Trent of 1563, which was one of the ecumenical councils that exists, one of the 21 ecumenical councils that existed from 325 AD with the first council of Nicaea up until about 1870, 1871. Coming out of the Council of Trent of 1563, one of the results of that council was to create a new calendar, which would correct when Easter was celebrated, okay, and put it back based upon when it was celebrated, going back to the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. So the Gregorian calendar is based upon how long it takes the Earth to rotate around the sun, okay? It's based upon how long it takes the Earth to rotate around the sun. It takes 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and 45.51 seconds in general. Some sources say 5 hours and 48 minutes and 45.25 seconds. There may be a fluctuation. May have been a fluctuation over the course of years, okay? So this is what the Gregorian calendar is based upon. So you have 365 and 1/4 days. This is what it's based upon. This was introduced in 1582 by Pope Gregory XIII, and this is one of the things he's known for. And the Gregorian calendar was introduced to correct when Easter was celebrated, so it falls in line with the falls closer in line to the vernal equinox. And Easter is celebrated on the first Sunday following the first full moon following the vernal equinox. Okay, this is what determines when Easter is celebrated. Okay, I know people say, I was teaching entrepreneurship class a few years ago, and at a local community college, and I asked the class how many people celebrate Easter. And this is all African Americans in the class. Everybody's hands went up, and I asked, who knows what determines when Easter is celebrated? Nobody knew. So it's about 15 people in the class, right? Everybody's hand went up. I celebrate Easter. I celebrate Easter. All right. Who knows what determines when Easter is celebrated? Nobody knew. Somebody said it's on the calendar. How did they know which Sunday to put on the calendar? It's usually a different Sunday each year. It's based upon astronomy. Easter is celebrated on the first Sunday following the first full moon, following the vernal equinox. Vernal is Latin, which means spring. Equinox comes from the Latin word aquanatium, which means equal nights. So the vernal equinox occurs on March 20th or March 21st, usually. And it marks the first day of spring, number one, because vernal is Latin, which means spring, S-P-R-I-N-G. And the vernal equinox is the day of the year that you have the same amount of daylight as sunlight, okay? And this is what Easter is based upon. This is what determines when Easter is celebrated, all right? Based upon astronomy. But we're not supposed to study astronomy. We ain't supposed to deal with that because the Christian church told us not to. But that comes from us. That comes from African people. And we did not make a distinction between astronomy and astrology. Europeans make a distinction between that. We're not supposed to deal with all that because if we dealt with that, it would take us back to who we were. It would take us back to our ancestry, take us back to ancient Kemet, take us back to the Nile Valley region of Africa. It would take us back to all of that. So to suppress that, we're told, oh, we're not supposed to deal with that type of information. Okay. All right. Now, how's everybody doing today? Okay. Shout out to people watching us on Facebook Live and then Crowdcast also. Now, those watching us, share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in. Okay. Very quickly, I'm Michael M. For those just tuning in, I'm Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network. On the Facebook fan page, we're broadcasting on the African History Network. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, and writer. And this is a overview of a online course, a 10-hour, 5-week online course that I teach called Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school, okay? And we deal with thousands of years of history, and we deal with historical events leading up to the transatlantic slave trade happening. And this is an overview of the course, some of the things we deal with. We just posted a link. If you want to register for the course, it's only $40 for the entire course. And it's going to blow you away. Information. This is just a sample of what we do within the course, okay? And all the sessions are recorded, so you can go back and watch it over and over and over again. All the sessions are recorded. We do the sessions live in the class. You can ask questions in the class with the live chat. If you miss any of it, you can go back and watch it over and over again. Now, Cheryl Jameson on Facebook said Easter has no actual date. Easter is after the first full moon of spring, sometimes in April, May. Yeah, well, the latest is going to occur is about April 25th. Okay, Easter occurs on the first Sunday following the first full moon, following the vernal equinox. So the earliest Easter will occur is about March 20th, March 21st. Latest it will occur is April 25th. All right. And this is all based upon astronomy. Okay. Sandra said it's very enlightening about Easter. Oh yeah, I did. What I have a DVD lecture dealing with the history of Christmas, Thanksgiving, and Easter, because Christmas is based upon astronomy. Also, I may do an online class. I'll probably do an online class about the origins of the history of Christmas, because that's a full session right there. That's a full online class right there. There's a lot of information dealing with the history of Christmas. Okay, so let's go back to this. And we just posted the information for the class I'm teaching today at 3 p.m. Great African Women in History, the Mothers of Civilization. If you want to register for that, that's only $20. It's a 3-week course, Saturdays, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. And as soon as you register, you can watch the first session we already recorded. 3 reasons why I do these presentations. This is a lot of work to do these, and I didn't get to bed about 5:30 this morning. I tell people, you don't have to believe a word that I say. Go do your own research. Proper documentation ends all conversation. Proper documentation ends all conversation. Okay. Number one, I do these to make you think. If I can make you think, you start asking questions. If you start asking questions, you start seeking out answers. Number two, to provide you with the history, the books, the websites, the articles, the video clips, etc., for you to go do your own research. Okay. You don't have to believe a word that I say. Proper documentation ends all conversation. Number three, the information that we take in has to bring about behavior modification. Okay. So this is not about learning a bunch of facts and figures so you can say how much you know. Your thoughts create feelings, your feelings create actions and behaviors, your actions and behaviors create results. So this information that we take in has to bring about behavior modification. So our model is right knowledge corrects wrong behavior. Right knowledge corrects wrong behavior. All right. All right. Now here's some of the things that we deal with in the course. These are just a few of the things. Okay. When we deal with understanding the transatlantic slave trade, we deal with what was the transatlantic slave trade. What were some of the events that led up to the transatlantic slave trade starting? What role did Christopher Columbus play? Because Christopher Columbus is crucial to the transatlantic slave trade. And oftentimes when we're taught about Columbus in school, we're not oftentimes taught about the link. We have to deal with a chronology of history. We have to deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors. We have to deal with Columbus and his 4 voyages and deal with how Columbus laid the foundation for slavery, racism, capitalism, the exploitation of indigenous people, and opens up the so-called New World to other European nations coming in, exploiting these nations, etc., and becoming rich, becoming wealthy off of this. All right. We deal with when did Africans first come to the U.S. as slaves? Because Africans were enslaved in the U.S., what we call today the U.S., before August 20th, 1619. We can go back to the 1520s when the Spanish are taking Africans into the territory we call South Carolina. We deal with did Africans sell themselves into slavery, because the way oftentimes that story is told is not historically accurate oftentimes. And you had Africans who, once they realized what was going on, they started fighting against the Europeans, fighting back against the slave trade as well. We deal with the cultural servitude system that Africans had, all of that. We deal with the Asiento of 1513, 1517, the insurance companies that Europeans controlled that took out insurance policies on enslaved African people on the ships and the slave ships, things like this. We deal with all this, okay? And then we also deal with where African people in America before the slave trade, which is extremely important. And this also ties into the work from Dr. David Imhotep in the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. So I'll be interviewing him very soon, once again. And if you go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, We have the, you can listen to the interviews I've done with them. Also, we have, so we deal with were African people in America before the slave trade. We'll also deal with the discovery that came out Wednesday, April 26th, about a presence of humans in California going back 130,000 years ago. Only people these could have been were African people, because these were the only people on the face of the earth. These were African people. They're trying to suppress this information. These were African people. Okay. All right. Now, this is Runoko Rashidi. Runoko is one of our great Grandmaster Scholar warriors. I've interviewed Runoko 6 times, and he's a world traveler. He's been to 110 islands and countries around the world. He's in the documentary Hidden Colors 2, Triumph of Melanin. We have all the Hidden Colors documentaries at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. But he has a model that I've modified and made my own. And this is why studying African history is so important. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you have been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So this is why studying African history is so important. And it gives you your foundation. Your history and culture gives you your foundation, your values, your interests, and your principles. And it provides a cultural paradigm, cultural context that you see the world through as well. Okay, it provides a cultural paradigm, a cultural context that you see the world through. And for the most part, African Americans, we've been taught to see reality through the eyes of Europeans. Okay, we've been taught to see reality through the eyes of Europeans, and we've been taught that if something is good for Europeans, that automatically means it's good for us, and that's not necessarily the case. All right, so this is Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey led the largest mass movement of African people in the history of this country. He founded the Universal Negro Improvement Association in 1914 in Jamaica. He comes to the U.S. in 1916, and he was coming to work with Booker T. Washington, who he admired. He read Up From Slavery, written by Booker T. Washington. They have been corresponding by letter. He admired Booker T. Washington's do for self program and mentality, things like this, economic empowerment. And Booker T. Washington died the year before Marcus Garvey got here. But Marcus Garvey said if the Negro is not careful, he would drink in all the poison of modern civilization and die from the effects of it. If the Negro is not careful, he would drink in all the poison of modern civilization and die from the effects of it. Okay. And when we deal with commercialized hip hop and the negative commercialized hip hop, people like Lil Wayne and Rick Ross, Future and A$AP Rocky and Nicki Minaj, the rest of them, the negative hip hop that they're putting out, our children are drinking in this poison and dying from the effects of it. Now, these may be nice people when you get to know them in person. Okay, I have no doubt that a lot of them are nice people. But the persona that's being projected by the record company and the music that's being put out is destructive. And this is something we have to fight against. This is why we have to educate our children to divest from this nonsense. Okay. All right. And there are other ways to go about this as well, especially through economic withdrawal. All right. So this is Dr. Wade Nobles. Dr. Wade, what I'm doing is laying a historical foundation. This is what we do in the course. So we're just laying a historical foundation so we can get into some topics. This is an overview of our 10-hour course. Dr. Wade Nobles is one of our great African-centered scholar warriors. He's a archaeologist. He's a psychologist, I should say. And he taught us that power is the ability to define and shape reality and to have other people accept your definition of reality as if it were their own. Power coming from the Latin word potere, meaning to be able. Power is the ability to define and shape reality and to have other people accept your definition of reality as if it were their own. Power coming from the Latin word potere, meaning to be able. Okay. And this is why having control of the media is so important. And this is why understanding the impact that the media has on us and our children is so important also, because we're being manipulated oftentimes by the media. So Dr. Francis Cress Wilson and Neely Fuller, they taught us about understanding white supremacy and racism as a global system. And they told us if you do not understand European white supremacy and racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you think that you understand will totally confuse you. Everything else that you think that you understand will totally confuse you. And we have to understand racism and white supremacy as it manifests itself throughout the 9 areas of human activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And this is for the purpose of preserving genetic white survival on a planet that's less than 10% European. Here's the book that Dr. Wilson wrote, The ISIS Papers. I had the pleasure of interviewing her 3 times. You can listen to all the interviews I did with her at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And unfortunately, she made a transition January 2nd, 2016. She suffered a massive stroke on New Year's Day, 2016. Passed away January 2nd, 2016. So, you know, Malcolm's one of my heroes, and you see the pictures behind me of you see the picture behind me of Malcolm X. Malcolm's one of my heroes. You also see Muhammad Ali behind me, another one of my heroes as well. But Malcolm taught us a number of things, and one of the things Malcolm taught us was about the media and the power of the media. And Malcolm taught us that the media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the ability to make the innocent guilty and the guilty innocent, and that's power because they control the minds of the masses. The media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and to make the guilty innocent, and that's power because they control the minds of the masses. And you have to understand, see, what a lot of people don't know is that you have 6 multinational media corporations that control 90% of what you read, see, and hear. You have 6 multinational media corporations that control 90% of what you read, see, and hear. You have CBS Corp, Comcast, Walt Disney, News Corp, Time Warner, and Viacom. CBS, Comcast, Walt Disney, News Corp, Time Warner, and Viacom. You have 6 multinational media corporations that control 90% of what you read, see, and hear. You have about 240 executives, almost all of them white men, that control these 90% of what you read, see, and hear. So Comcast owns NBC, MSNBC. They own Universal. Universal makes movies. Universal puts out music, puts out hip hop. This is all owned by Comcast. Walt Disney owns ABC, ABC News, ABC TV network that shows Blackish. They own MSNBC. They own ESPN. This is Walt Disney, and this is just a few of the things they own. This is Walt Disney, okay? As well as controlling Walt Disney owns Marvel Comics now. Walt Disney owns a lot of stuff. The Walt Disney Company. I think George Lucas sold Lucasfilms to Walt Disney also. George Lucas sold Lucasfilms to somebody. I think it's Walt Disney sold it to. So then you have News Corp. News Corp is owned by Rupert Murdoch, okay? And his sons are running it for a lot now also. News Corp owns the Fox News Network that Bill O'Reilly just got fired from. News Corp owns the Fox TV network that shows Empire, one of the most degrading TV shows on, probably the most degrading TV show on air, next to the 6 o'clock news for African Americans. Then you have Time Warner and Viacom. In Time Warner and Viacom, Viacom owns BET, VH1, and MSNBC. Just to name a few. Viacom, they control something like about 80% of music videos shown on the networks, because they own all that: VH1, MTV, BET, BET Soul, all that, Centric, all that's owned by Viacom. Okay. So you have 6 multinational media corporations that control 90% of what you read, see, and hear. All right. And this is what Malcolm was teaching us. The media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and the guilty innocent. And that's power because they control the minds of the masses. All right. So and then when we look at Bill O'Reilly, right? When we look at Bill O'Reilly, who just got fired for being a sexual pervert and having to settle 5 sexual harassment lawsuits, he and Fox News had to pay out $13 million over the course of the years, right? And then more women coming out also with sexual harassment allegations against Bill O'Reilly. A lot of people don't know that there was an African-American organization who was at the forefront of getting Bill O'Reilly fired from Fox News. That's colorchange.org, colorofchange.org. Van Jones, who's on CNN, was one of the co-founders of Color of Change. And there's an article from the Huffington Post, Black Voices, Huffington Post, from April 20th, 2017. This Black org helped oust Bill O'Reilly by hitting Fox where it hurts. This Black org helped oust Bill O'Reilly by hitting Fox where it hurts. Read that article, because this deals with how Color of Change was behind the scenes, putting pressure on the advertisers, because about 80 advertisers withdrew ads from Bill O'Reilly's show, The O'Reilly Factor, on Fox, which was the most successful, top-rated cable news program for years. 80 advertisers drew economic support, withdrew their ads from that show. And Color of Change was at the forefront of putting pressure on them to withdraw ads. Read that article. Colorofchange.org also helped to get Glenn Beck off the air, who was on the Fox News network. They also helped to get the Cops TV show off the air, which was on the air for 25 years, which is on Fox also. This is colorchange.org. Read this article. This Black org helped out engaged in this battle. And as Dr. King taught us, Dr. King said in his last speech, April 3rd, 1968, I've been to the mountaintop. He said that we have to always withdraw. He said we have to always anchor our external direct action with the power of economic withdrawal, which means when you have mass protests, you have Black Lives Matter protests, whatever it is, you have to have economic withdrawal strategies, economic boycotts targeted towards your opponent as well to get the biggest effect. Okay, so, Malcolm asked a series of questions about who are you? And he said, don't tell me Negro. He said, what were you before the white man named you a Negro? He said, where were you? What did you have? What language did you speak? What was yours? He talks about, he asked the question, what was your name? Don't tell me Smith or Jones or Bunch or Powell. That wasn't your name. He said, we didn't have those type of names where you and I came from. What was your name? And why don't you now know what your name was then? Where did it go? Who took it? How did he take it? What method did the man use to wipe out your history? Where's your history? He said, what method did the man use to make you as dumb as you are right now? These are some questions that Malcolm asked. These are some questions we answer in the class, in the online course, the full online course. Okay. All right. So we also had Kathleen Cleaver talks about why they were wearing a natural hairstyle back in the late 60s, early 70s. She talked about how there was an awakening taking place among African Americans, and they were learning to love their natural hair and their features. She talked about how for years African American women were taught to do everything they could to look like white women and taught to lighten their skin and straighten their hair. Okay. Now, this is Dr. David Imhotep. He wrote the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. Groundbreaking book. He says he stands on the shoulders of Dr. Ivor Van Sertima, who wrote the book, They Came Before Columbus. They Came Before Columbus came out in 1976. There have been tons of discoveries since then. So Dr. David Imhotep's book goes way beyond that, but he deals with an African presence in this country going back at least 51,700 years ago. And you can visit his website, historictruth.info, historictruth.info. He holds the world's first ever PhD in ancient African history. Just talk to him. So I'm setting up an interview with him as well. So look out for that, another interview with him. But on page 14 of his book, and this is what we deal with in the course, because we deal with a chronology of history. We deal with a chronology of history. We do not start our history in slavery, shackled in chains and conquered by Europeans. He deals with an African presence in this country going back at least 51,700 years ago. Page 14 of his book, he deals with the discovery made in 2004 by Dr. Albert Goodyear, 2004 by Dr. Albert Goodyear. And this is what they found at this campsite. They found artifacts, architecture, campsites, carvings, Egyptian writings, footprints in lava, genetic M174D haploid groups dealing with DNA and genetics, linguistics, paintings, skulls, skeletons, structures, and tools. 13 different disciplines thoroughly documenting an African presence in this country going back at least 51,700 years ago. Okay. And his book has 713 footnotes as well. All right, now, this is Dr. Albert Goodyear. Now, there was an article from ScienceDaily.com, which is a scientific journal, ScienceDaily.com. They had an article November 18, 2004, called New Evidence Puts Man in North America 50,000 years ago. New evidence puts man in North America 50,000 years ago. Okay. And this article, the synopsis of the article said that radiocarbon tests of carbonized plant remains where artifacts were unearthed last May along the Savannah River in Allendale County by University of South Carolina archaeologist Dr. Albert Goodyear indicate that the sediments containing these artifacts are at least 50,000 years old, meaning that humans inhabited North America long before the last ice age. Okay, so this discovery here there was an attempt to suppress this. Okay, and Dr. Albert Goodyear has been catching hell for publishing this study. Okay, publishing these finds. Now, you had Wednesday, April 26, you had a discovery that was revealed. Okay, and all the major news outlets carried this story. Did you all hear about this? This dealt with mastodon bones found in San Diego. Mastodon bones found in San Diego. Okay, and this puts they dealt with a human presence going back at least 130,000 years ago. And we dealt with this in the class last Thursday, okay? Last Thursday's class. So when you register for this online course, you'll be able to automatically view 7 hours of content of the course we've already done, okay? And you can see last Thursday's class. And we also have bonus footage for you to watch also, okay? We also have bonus footage for you to watch as well. All right, so all the major news outlets had this story, and I'm gonna show it to you here in just a minute. NBC News, Washington Post. I looked at Discovery Channel's website, which is seeker.com. I looked at their website; they carried this story. I looked at all the National Geographic had a story about this as well. All the news outlets had it. New York Times, CNN, LA Times, they all carried this story. And it's blowing people away. And when I talked to Dr. David Imhotep, he said, look, he said, man, I've been saying it's 100,000 years for some years now that the African presence in this country goes back. And he's saying this discovery is going back 130,000 years ago. And what happens is the deeper they dig, the blacker the planet gets. The more research they do, the older we get. So when these discoveries are made, they keep having to push dates back. And this is what's scaring some of these Europeans so much. When these discoveries are made, they keep having to push dates back. And a lot of our scholars, like Runoko Rashidi and Dr. Charles Finch, a lot of them have been saying for years that African people, I'm sorry, they've been saying for years that Homo sapiens sapiens, okay, which is the classification of humans we are, Homo sapiens sapiens, they've been saying for years, Homo sapiens sapiens are not 75,000 years old. We're not 100,000 years old or 200,000 years old. They've been saying for years that Homo sapiens sapiens are 300,000 years old, okay? And more of these discoveries are confirming that. More of these discoveries are confirming that, okay? All right, so we just posted a link here on the thread, those watching on Facebook, if you want to register for this full online course, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Just click on the link there. You get more information. You can register for it. The full course is only $40, and all the sessions are recorded. So if you miss anything, you can go back and watch it over and over again. Okay. And this is just a sample of what we deal with in the course. All right. Now I want to go to this study that came out. It was published Wednesday, April 26th. Okay. And I think this takes me right here. This is where I need to go. All right. And make sure this shows up here on the screen share. Okay. So this was an article. Like I said, all the major news outlets had articles about this. Okay. This was an article from NBCnews.com. NBCnews.com. You see, New York Times had an article about it. Humans lived in North America 130,000 years ago, study claims. National Geographic had an article about it. Humans in California 130,000 years ago, get the facts. If you Google the term 130,000 years ago, mastodon, if you Google that term, right, all these articles come up dealing with this topic. Wired.com, Los Angeles Times, National Geographic, all these articles come up dealing with that topic, okay? If we look at the article from NBC News, however, the name of the article is Mastodon Bone Findings Could Upend Our Understanding of Human History. Mastodon Bone Findings Could Upend Our Understanding of Human History, okay? So the mastodon was a prehistoric ancestor to elephants, and these are like the woolly, the woolly type mammal elephant with the tusks. That's what a mastodon is. Let me see if we have a picture of it. One of the outlets had a picture of it. I thought it was National Geographic. It's National Geographic. Then we have the one from Seeker.com. I'll try to pull that up. Okay, but when you look at this, that you'll see those. Okay, Seeker. Okay. All right, but it says paleontologists have dug up a 130,000-year-old mastodon skeleton that looks like it was smashed apart by humans, but they found it in America where people were not supposed to have arrived for another 100,000 years. Okay, this just came out April 26th. And see, information like this changes everything and causes them to have to rewrite the history books. So how could this happen? Okay. The researchers say they think early humans must have come to America much, much earlier than anyone ever thought. They suggest that other scientists start looking for evidence of people in places they never bothered looking before. This discovery right here is changing everything. Now you have some archaeologists who are challenging it, okay, because they want to keep going with the Clovis theory, which was a discovery made in about 13,000 years ago, something like that. They don't want to acknowledge a presence of humans here prior to that, okay? And Dr. Albert Goodyear's discovery in 2004 showed an African presence going back at least 51,700 years ago, because we are African people are the indigenous people of North, Central, and South America. We were here in this land we call the United States of America before anybody else, before the transatlantic slave trade started, before Native Americans came into existence. Okay, so in this article, it says, if the conclusions are confirmed, they will turn North American archaeology upside down. If the conclusions are confirmed, they will turn North American archaeology upside down. And this is what people are so afraid of. Now, Stephen Holland of the Center for American Paleolithic Research and paleontologists, they study dinosaurs and dinosaur bones and things like this, okay? Paleontologists. He said, I know people will be skeptical of this because it is so surprising. And I was skeptical when I first looked at the material itself, but it's definitely an archaeological site. Now, this was discovered in San Diego, okay? So you could check it, you could read more about this article, but I want to get to a particular point. Also read this article here. DNA links ancient Americans to their living descendants. DNA links ancient Americans to their living descendants, okay? Now, the site includes a skeleton that looks like it was taken apart and broken with stone tools, which are left in place alongside the bones they smashed. One tusk appears to have been stuck upright into the ground. So you can read more about this, read about the evidence, okay? But they cite Dr. Albert Goodyear in the article, okay? So so you all know, like when you are on websites, if you do Control F, if you hold down the Control key and F, that's find. So you can search by keyword on a website. You all know that, right? Same thing, it's a hotkey. Same thing in Microsoft Word. Control F is find. You can search by keyword. So they interviewed Dr. Albert Goodyear from the University of South Carolina. In the article here from NBC News, it says there are other sites in the Americas that have been dated to before 13,000 years ago, but there is a debate about the conclusions. DNA evidence suggests that humans were in the Americas long before even 15,000 years ago, but there's no physical evidence to support the idea. Well, there really is, but they don't want to acknowledge it. And the archaeology mainstream is very unforgiving of researchers who challenge the accepted dates, said Dr. Albert Goodyear of the University of South Carolina, who's been working to prove for years that stone tools found in a South Carolina site date to as long as 50,000 years ago. Dr. Albert Goodyear said there is a lot of ignorance and arrogance about just how little we know about the Western Hemisphere, okay? And he was not involved in the San Diego discovery. He said there is a lot of ignorance and arrogance about just how little we know about the Western Hemisphere. He said these things are very controversial, okay? And he went on to say, I think, referring to the discovery in San Diego, he said, I think they've done their homework. I think they've done their homework. He said, noting that Stephen Holland is one of the world's leading experts on what mastodon bones look like when they are broken naturally versus when they are smashed open by humans, okay? Dr. Albert Goodyear said, I think these sites are a wake-up call to the profession. I think these sites are a wake-up call to the profession, okay? So this discovery right here is going to change everything, because the only people on earth at this time were African people. And the more research they do, the deeper they dig, the blacker the planet gets. They're going to find out these were African people. And it's going to push back the date from 51,700 years ago which Dr. David Imhotep deals with in his book, The First Americans Were African. It's going to push it back from that date. It's going to push it back to 130,000 years ago, which means that African people, even 51,700 years ago, this is before Native Americans come into existence. We were here before Native Americans in this land we call the United States of America. We were here before Native Americans came into existence, because the Native Americans are the offspring of an intermixing of Africans who were already here. And these Africans, some of them are the Khoisan. The Khoisan have the oldest DNA on the planet. They're the ancestors to the Ainu and the Twa. The Twa are derisively called pygmies, okay? And they go all around the world. And when the Genome Project, Genome, when the Genome Project did their research and took DNA samples of 100,000 people around the world, they found that the Khoisan have the oldest DNA on the planet, and they come from Southern Africa. But the Khoisan are going to be here. You're going to have Africans building mounds. There were pyramid mounds up and down the Mississippi River. You also have a presence from ancient Kemet here as well, ancient Egypt. You got different African nations here. And when Asians come around 3000 BC, they're going to intermix with these Africans, and their offspring are who we call Native Americans. If you look at old black and white photographs of Native Americans, these were usually very dark-skinned people, oftentimes high cheekbones, things like this. Now, when Europeans come here, a lot of the indigenous African nations, a lot of them are going to get reclassified as Native Americans. So if you don't understand history, don't know what you're looking for, you won't be able to find them. Some of them get killed off in wars with Native Americans as well. But African people are the original Native Americans. Yes, the transatlantic slave trade happened, but only a very small amount were brought here into this land during the transatlantic slave trade, between 388,000 to 1.4 million. Yes, the transatlantic slave trade happened, but only a very small amount came here, okay? But there were millions of African people here in this land we call the United States of America for tens of thousands of years. There were more African people here already than the numbers that were brought here during the transatlantic slave trade. Okay, so we'll take some of your questions here. Now, Jadia NYC said, what site link, which site are you referring to? Okay, which site are you referring to, Jadia? Let's go to some of your comments. Okay, so once again, if you're just tuning in, Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network radio show, host of the Michael Imhotep Show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, and writer. You'll see me in documentaries like Black Friday, What Legacy Will You Leave? The t-shirt you see me wearing here, Black Friday. You see me in the documentaries, Resurrecting Black Wall Street, The Blueprint from Dr. Boyce Watkins and Your Black World Films. I'm also in Elementary Genocide Part 3 comes out in the next 2 or 3 months from director Raheem Shabbat. In that documentary with Professor Kaba Kamene and Professor James Small, 2 of my teachers. But this is a overview. It's about an hour and a half, 2-hour overview of a 10-hour, 5-week online course that I teach called Ancient Kemet, the Moors and the Maafa. Ancient Kemet, the Moors and the Maafa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school, okay? And we deal with thousands of years of history. We deal with a chronology of history leading up to the transatlantic slave trade happening. And this is an overview of some of the things that we teach, okay? This one you're on, okay. Okay, this is an overview of some of the things we teach in the course, all right? So if you want to register for the full online course, it's only $40 for the course. The classes meet Thursday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Classes are live. We record the sessions. It's online. If you miss any of it, not a problem. You can go back and watch it over and over again. You can ask questions during the class also. You can watch a class on a smartphone, a tablet, or a computer. We just posted a link here, so register here, okay? JD at NYC said, why do they want to hide so much from people? Because white supremacy and the truth can't coexist in the same space at the same time. The knowledge had to be suppressed. The knowledge had to be suppressed for white supremacy to flourish. Okay, so this is about power and control. This is some of the history we deal with. We deal with the rise of white supremacy in the course. So we deal with things chronologically. It's based upon a lie, and it's based upon a distortion and of the truth and hiding the truth. Okay, this is how white supremacy came into existence. And the system of racism is a power structure coming from the system of white supremacy. Racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race, coming out of the ideology of European white supremacy. All right. Okay, so shout out to everybody watching us on Facebook. Share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in. Are you all learning anything? Those watching on Facebook, you all learning anything? We have Vicky Holland, Desmond, Cheryl Jameson, Ralph Williams. How you all like this? You all learning anything? Desmond, Cynthia, how you doing? Desmond said, allow the Mexican War separated the tribes, the 7 major tribes of the Asians, made deals with the Europeans to enslave their kin. Mexican-American wars split the tribes across Texas and Midwest. All right. You have any sources that you can share with us for that information, Desmond? Thanks. Okay, Cynthia, Rochelle, Nita, Vicky. Okay. All right, good. All right. So, okay, we're going to continue here, and then I have to teach a class at 3 o'clock, so I got to get ready. We're going to end this at 1:30 because I have to get ready for my course. I have to teach at 3 p.m. today. Great African Women in History, the Mothers of Civilization. Great African Women in History, the Mothers of Civilization. Okay, so we're doing an overview of ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Okay, who wants to register for this online course? And as soon as you register, there's 7 hours of content that you can watch of the sessions we've already recorded, so you can get caught up. Cheryl, Real Talk, Love My History. Jason Tanner, you're giving a lot. James Bay, great information. Who wants to register for this online course? You need me to post the link again so you can register for this course. And once you click on the link for the course, at the top of the page, click on courses. It shows you the other courses that I teach also. This is at our online school that I set up, the African History Network School. Okay. When We Rule by Robin Walker. It's interesting, Jonathan, you mentioned that book by Robin Walker, because that's one of the books we reference in the course. So Jonathan mentioned, check out the book When We Rule by Robin Walker. This is one of the books we reference in the course. This Robin Walker is deep. Robin Walker is in Hidden Colors 4. This brother right here, oh my God. This brother, Professor Kaba Kamene, who's one of my teachers, he was the first one to mention Robin Walker to me. And he told me to get this book. And this book, the introduction, is by Runoko Rashidi, who we just talked about. Robin Walker, this brother right here is the truth, man. This brother right here ain't no joke. If you've seen Hidden Colors 4, and we have all the Hidden Colors documentaries at our website, because we sell DVDs, all of my lectures are there. I have 30 of my lectures on DVD. You've seen Hidden Colors 4. Robin Walker is brown skinned with a mustache and he's bald headed. And he's British, so he has a British accent. Okay. He's in Hidden Colors 4. This brother right here, man, is no joke whatsoever. A lot of people don't know about Robin Walker. This brother ain't no joke. Seriously. Okay. See, just because you're not on the lecture circuit and you don't have like all your stuff on YouTube doesn't mean you don't have scholars out here badder, some of them with all this stuff on YouTube. I'm just saying, I'm not casting aspersions on anybody, but I'm saying there are other people who like you don't know about. Their stuff is off the charts. Robin Walker is one of those people. All right. Rochelle said, I just read The African Genius by Basil. Okay, Basil Davidson. Yeah. Basil Davidson. Post again. Okay. Vi, want to post? Okay, we'll post a link again here, Vi. Just a second here. Okay. And share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in as well. Okay, so we just post a link here. Click on that link. You can register for this online course that I teach that we're doing an overview of ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Is as soon as you register, you can watch the first 7 hours of the class, and we also have bonus content for you to watch there as well. Okay, so there's a lot of information there. And the next class meets Thursday, May 4th, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All the sessions are recorded. If you miss any of it, you go back and watch it over and over again. Somebody asked for the name of the book again. Okay, When We Ruled by Robin Walker. Now, once again, you don't have to go out and buy any of these books to be able to follow along in the class. You may want to have these for your personal library and read them for your personal library. Okay, so we cite them in the course. But When We Ruled by Robin Walker. This is Queen T on the front of the book. And the introduction is by Runoko Rashidi, who we just talked about. Okay, When We Ruled by Robin Walker. Also, you may want to get Introduction to African Religion by John S. M. Beatty. Introduction to African Religion by John S. M. Beatty. You know, I got this book 20 years ago, more than 20, it's about 94, I got this book. So this gives a good introduction to understanding African cosmology, African spiritual systems from different high cultures, different nations across Africa, okay? Just to get a general, a better understanding, Introduction to African Religion by John M. Beatty, okay? That's M-B-I-T-I, M-B-I-T-I, M-B. All right, let's continue here. Okay, so now this discovery right here from 2011, like Muhammad Ali said, I shook up the world. Like my hero Muhammad Ali said, I shook up the world. Okay, when he won the heavyweight championship at 22 years old, this discovery right here shook up the world. All right, and we deal with some of these archaeological discoveries in the course. This is why a lot of people who take the course, they said they've never seen anything like this before. We deal with a lot of these archaeological discoveries, okay? Because this article is from the New York Times, okay? This is from February 2010, 7 years ago. The name of this article is On Crete, New Evidence of Very Ancient Mariners. On Crete, New Evidence of Very Ancient Mariners, okay? And what this article deals with is how on the Greek island of Crete, here's the number again, 130,000 years ago. This number comes up again. This is why when the article came, when the articles came out about the revelation on Wednesday, April 26th, about a human presence in America dating back 130,000 years ago, I automatically thought back to this right here about this discovery 7 years ago. So they did archaeological excavations on the Greek island of Crete over the course of 2 summers, right? And they found stone tools that date back to at least 130,000 years ago. They found stone tools that date back at least 130,000 years ago. Well, there's only people on the face of the earth were African people at this time. And they said that this is considered strong evidence for the earliest known seafaring in the Mediterranean and calls for rethinking maritime capabilities of pre-human cultures. Well, first of all, I can tell you, and this is from my research, this is my theory. I don't think these were pre-human people. I think these were Homo sapiens sapiens, and these were Black African people. These are the only people on the face of the earth, number one. Number two, Homo sapiens sapiens, as many of our scholars have been saying, are really 300,000 years old and not 75,000 to 100,000 or 200,000 years old. They're actually at least 300,000 years old, okay? Now, Crete has been an island for more than 5 million years, which means they had to have sailed there, okay? And it talks about how this is changing everything because it says this seems to push history of the Mediterranean voyaging back more than 100,000 years ago, specialists in Stone Age archaeology say. This was This was causing them to have to rethink everything. And it said previous artifact discoveries has shown people reaching Cyprus, the Greek island of Cyprus, and a few other Greek islands, and possibly Sardinia, no earlier than 10 to 12,000 years ago. This discovery right here is causing scientists and archaeologists to have to rethink everything, okay? And this is why I say the deeper they dig, the blacker the planet gets, the more research they do, the older we get. There were 3 archaeological findings that were released just this month, okay? Early in April, you had, and we talked about this in the course last Thursday. So when you register for the course, I get deep into this. I show you video of them talking about the finding in San Diego. We got deep into that. This is just an overview, so I don't have the time here. But earlier in April, you had 2 findings in Egypt. You had 8 mummies discovered that date back about 3,500 years ago. And then you have a pyramid from the 13th dynasty that dates back about 3,700 years ago discovered. These archaeological findings are taking place all the time. And when these findings a lot of these findings take place, they keep having to push the dates back. And the one in San Diego is blowing people's minds, and it's scaring the hell out of a lot of people, because these archaeological findings are totally destroying white supremacy. And then you have Donald Trump supporters saying they want their country back. It's like, no, wait a second, hold on. African people were here before you came into existence. We were here in this land before you came into existence. This was our land stolen from indigenous African people and Native Americans. So, you know, I did a lecture in September of 2016, and I think I'm going to do an online course surrounding this, okay? Because a lot of my lectures, I have 30 of my lectures on DVD, and when I'm doing a lot of these lectures, I'm turning into online courses and adding more information to it, because I'm not restricted by the time constraints of actually doing a physical lecture. I did a lecture called "The Time We Have Been Waiting For Is Now." The time we have been waiting for is now. Colin Kaepernick, the national anthem, the Black Bank movement, and too many slave movies. The time we have been waiting for is now. These archaeological evidence, these archaeological findings that are coming out are destroying white supremacy. They're destroying white supremacy. And this is why so many Europeans are so scared to death of it, and they're trying to discredit and keep this information from coming out. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Okay. So Jadia NYC said recently they found pyramids in Niger. They predate the ones now in Egypt. They shut down the program. So no more digging. You have an article for that, Jadia? You have an article so I can research that? Because when I deal with information like that, I like to really research the sources, and then I confer with some scholars. It's like I had a conversation with Dr. David Imhotep, and I sent him articles about this stuff, about the discovery in San Diego. So I confer with some of the scholars on this also. But if you have a link about that, post that here on the thread, or you can inbox me here on Facebook. With the African History Network, on my personal page, Michael Imhotep. Okay. It was a news report from over there. Let me see. Okay. If you have if you can Google that and you can come up with the keywords or something like that, it'll come up with some article links or something. So I want to research that. All right. Okay. So let's continue here. We'll be here for a few more minutes here. This discovery right here is blowing people's minds, all right? Now, in the course, one of the things we deal with is the suppression of the knowledge, okay? And I show you a real-life historical example of the knowledge being suppressed, the knowledge coming out of ancient Kemet, coming out of ancient Egypt being suppressed. And we see this when we deal with the Druids, okay? The Druids in Ireland. Now, the word Druid in Old Irish means he who knows, he who knows. And the Druids were dealing with a watered down version of teachings coming out of ancient Kemet, coming out of ancient Egypt. Okay, they're dealing with a watered down version of the teachings coming out of ancient Egypt, and we deal with some of the history of them, right? And what they're dealing with in the concept of becoming aware of the knowledge of the Creator that exists inside of you, and elevating your conscious level through attaining more knowledge and understanding that there's no such thing as death. That you just go on into the next lifetime, etc. Right? Because the African people, historically speaking, coming from our cosmology, coming from our spiritual systems, we did not have a concept of death. We understood that you go into the next life. Okay. Well, this is in what the Druids are teaching is in contradiction to what the Christian church is teaching. Okay. And in 432 AD, Pope Celestine I sends a British slave named Patrick into Ireland to spread Christianity and to fight against the Druids. Okay, and he's going to kill thousands of people. Okay, and Patrick becomes canonized as a saint. And on March 17th, people celebrate a mass murderer who was a mass murderer for the Eastern Orthodox Church, because the Catholic Church did not exist at this time. The Catholic Church does not come into existence till 11th century AD, around 1050 AD. Now, this term at the bottom of the screen called frigatriskaidekaphobia. Frigatriskaidekaphobia. Frigatriskaidekaphobia means the fear of Friday the 13th, the fear of Friday the 13th, okay? And this ties right into the Knights Templar, which come into existence in during the Second Crusade, 1118 AD. And the Knights Templar are getting information that the Moors, the Africans known as the Moors, are taking into Europe. When the Moors go on in 711 AD, and they go all throughout Europe. They're in Europe for 800 years, okay? So the Knights Templar, originally known as the Poor Knights of Christ, they're going to get this information because the Moors are teaching people freely, unfortunately. This is why I say I wish we never taught Europeans what we knew, because all this came back to bite us in the behind. The Moors introduced cotton, sugar, and rice into Europe. And these are 3 of the 5 major slave plantations you're going to see during the transatlantic slave trade. Moors introduced cotton, rice, and sugar into Europe. All this stuff is going to come back to bite us in the behind. But the Knights Templar get this information. They become very powerful. They get disbanded around 1310, 1314. It's on a Friday, October 13th. It was a Friday. And this was said to be the day that the knowledge stopped, because the Knights Templar were known to be very knowledgeable about astronomy, mathematics, and science, all different types of things like this that the Moors are taking into Europe. Because when the Moors go in, about 85 to 90% of Europeans were illiterate. You had kings and queens who couldn't read or write, who were illiterate. King James Stewart I, who commissioned his version of the Bible in 1600 AD, the King James Version of the Bible, and it was completed in 1611, he was illiterate. He could neither read nor write. He was illiterate. So when the Knights Templar get disbanded, the teachings go underground. They resurface later as the Scottish rites of the Freemasons and the Rosicrucians, these other secret societies, okay? And then these teachings are going to come to the US and the British colonies, 1607 Jamestown, Virginia, and New York colonies and things like this, because 50 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence were Freemasons. 50 of the 56 signers of the Declaration, the 50 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence were Freemasons when it was signed July 4th, 1776. Okay, 52 of the signers didn't sign until August 2nd, 1776. Most of them didn't sign it July 4th. All right. So what happens is you're going to have these teachings come to the U.S. and this is how you get things like the Washington Monument, which is an ancient African symbol coming out of the mythology of Asar, Aset, and Heru, who the Greeks called Osiris, Isis, and Horus, known as the First Holy Trinity. And the Washington Monument, or what Africans call a Tekken, is an ancient African symbol of resurrection coming from the story of Asar, Aset, and Heru. And you had 1,200 Tekkenu throughout ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, okay? And Freemasonry is based upon teachings coming out of ancient Kemet that were taken into Europe by the Africans known as the Moors. Because George G.M. James said that the Moors were the custodians of the ancient Egyptian mystery system. George G.M. James, who wrote Stolen Legacy. Now, when we look at Freemasonry, the word Mason is derived from the Latin words mass and sun, mass and sun. And Mason means child of light, child of light. And it expresses the desire to pursue light, which is a metaphor for the sun, which symbolizes knowledge. So for hundreds of years, if not thousands of years, but actually for thousands of years, the concept of light or the sun represented knowledge and darkness represented ignorance. So when you look at the Africans known as the Moors, they were taking the light or the knowledge into Europe, which was in the Dark Ages. In the Dark Ages was the age of ignorance in Europe. And the Moors are bringing Europe out of the darkness into the light. Now, the term child of light or sons and daughters of light, because we taught African women also, we didn't discriminate. We taught African women as well. The term child of light or sons and daughters of light was first used to identify students who had completed 42 years of study in the temples of ancient Kemet. This is what was usually referred to as the ancient Kemetic mystery system or the ancient Egyptian mystery system. Now, many Masonic temples were modeled after the temples of ancient Kemet, places where light or knowledge was imparted in a series of steps or degrees, a series of steps or degrees. And when you look at universities, when you go to a university, you get your credentials usually in the form of a degree, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a degree in philosophy, a PhD degree, a doctorate degree, a Juris Doctorate degree, okay, etc. This is where this comes from. The ancient Egyptian mystery schools, where you got where knowledge was imparted in a series of steps or degrees. If you look at the liberal arts system and liberal art colleges, concept of liberal arts comes from ancient Kemet, dealing with the trivium and the quadrivium, because these are the 7 liberal arts that they're going to teach. And George G.M. James deals with this in Stolen Legacy. He deals with the trivium and the quadrivium, okay, which are the 7 liberal arts, the 3 and the 4, the 7 liberal arts. This is where all this stuff comes from. This comes from us. But we've been taught that we're N-words and bitches and hoes, and we don't understand when our history and culture has been stolen. Okay, let's continue. So 50 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence and 13 of the signers of the U.S. Constitution were Freemasons. This is why you see African history and principles on the dollar bill, and also the layout of Washington, D.C. is based upon ancient African principles as well. We know Benjamin Banneker was the surveyor for the layout of Washington, D.C., and he did the blueprint from memory because he had a photographic memory. Okay. Check out Egypt on the Potomac by Tony Browder. This is one of the books we use in the course, Egypt on the Potomac, okay? I got to fast forward through some of this because I get ready to teach this course at 3 o'clock. Now, this is Dr. Leonard Jeffries. Dr. Jeffries is one of my teachers. Dr. Jeffries, Professor James Small and Dr. Leonard Jeffries are 2 of my teachers. You've heard me interview them a number of times. You listen to my interviews. You can listen to all my interviews, well, a lot of them. We have over 700 podcasts and episodes of the interviews I've done and radio shows I've done at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. So when they teach, they talk about the pyramid principle, okay? And this is the pyramid of Khafre at Giza, okay? And the Subiti or Pharaoh Khafre at Giza, all right? And the pyramid has 3 sides. Okay. The foundation of the pyramid is African history and culture. This gives you your values, your interests, and your principles, your VIPs, your values, your interests, and your principles. And this influences the two sides of the pyramid, economic empowerment and political empowerment. It does not matter how much money you have. If this foundation is not in place, the history and culture, which gives you your values, interests, and your principles, which tells you what to do with the money, how to make the money, etc. If that foundation is not in place, it doesn't matter how much money you have, you won't know what to do with it. So we have a GDP of $1.3 trillion, $1.3 trillion, okay? That's our annual income as African Americans. 97% of those dollars are spent with people that don't look like us because this foundation is not in place. And if you don't control your economics, you'll never be able to control your politics, okay? Two main ways to understand what politics is. Two main ways to understand what politics is. Number one, politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources. The legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources. Number one. You talk about government contracts given out. You talk about the annual budget, okay? That we saw this idiotic budget that Donald Trump released, right? After the HBCUs met with the HBCU presidents, and they moved the HBCU from the purview of the Department of Education to the White House, like that's supposed to be something big. No, it's not. In his budget, he cuts Pell Grants by $3.9 billion. 62% of African Americans who go to college go on Pell Grants. 73% of African Americans who go to HBCUs go on Pell Grants. In this budget that Donald Trump presented, it has to be confirmed by the Congress, okay? So we have to call the Congressional Switchboard, push our different issues to our members of the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate, because that makes a big difference also. But he cut funding to Pell Grants in general by $3.9 billion. And he had no increase in funding for HBCUs. After he said he was going to be the greatest president for HBCUs after all this, he used them for a photo op. The budget is critical. Government contracts are critical. It's a legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources. Tax cuts for the wealthy. Legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources. Number two, the second way to understand politics is the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. The writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. These are two ways to understand what politics, okay? So we have to have a synthesis of all of this, a synthesis of the history and culture, economic empowerment, political empowerment. Your history and culture is supposed to help you meet the needs and solve the problems of your community. It's supposed to help you meet the needs and solve the problems of your community. The history and culture is not designed for you to try to metaphysically transport yourself back to 3000 BC, so you don't have to meet the needs and solve the problems of the community, so you don't have to deal with the issues today, okay? Because too many people in the so-called conscious community, personally, I don't think the conscious community exists, but too many people in the so-called conscious community try to use the history and culture to metaphysically transport themselves back to 3000 BC in ancient Kemet, or stay high all day off of mushrooms or weed or a combination, whatever the hell it is, okay? And not use the history and culture to address the issues that exist today and provide solutions to meet the needs and solve the problems of the people today and plan for the future. A lot of them are not using the history and culture for that. They're using it just like Christians, just like some Christians, not all Christians, just like some Christians try to become so heavily bound and no earthly good, and they focus on going to heaven, okay, and don't do anything about meeting the needs and solve the problems of the people today. Some Christians do that. You have some people in the African Senate community, so-called conscious community, that do the same thing. Not all of them, not all of them, but you have some that do that. And one is almost just as bad as the other. One is almost just as bad as the other, okay? So this is what we have to understand. So we don't want to do that. All right, now let's continue here quickly and we're gonna wrap up. Oh, we gotta wrap up in about 5 minutes. I gotta get out of here. I gotta prepare for this class. I have to teach at 3 o'clock. So I get caught up in this. See, I love doing this. I get caught up in this, man. And if I don't have time limits on me, you know, I'll go to 5 o'clock today. All right, so Dr. Jeffries teaches us that whoever controls the images controls your self-esteem, self-respect, and self-development. Whoever controls the history controls the vision. All right. Dr. Jeffries is one of our grandmaster scholar warriors, brilliant, brilliant brother. Okay. So shout out to people watching on Facebook. Jadi, Desmond, James Bay, Vicky. Okay. Y'all learned anything? All right. Okay, so very quickly, what is culture? Because oftentimes, a lot of African people, a lot of African Americans don't know what culture is. And African American is not a nationality, it's an ethnic group. I don't have a problem with the term because African American, that term was not created by Reverend Jesse Jackson. We need to stop telling that lie, and I deal with the history of that. The term African American, earliest recorded usage goes back to May 15, 1782 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And African people are the original Americans because the word American comes from the Los Amadisques, who were a group of Black African people in Nicaragua who Iberico Vespucci comes in contact with, and he changes his name from Iberico to Amerigo. And America is a version of Amerigo because ca is a Latin suffix. Ca is a Latin suffix that denotes land. So America really means the land of the Ameri. And we know that African people are indigenous to the Americas. So I don't have a problem with the term African American and the term African coming from Afrique, the term Africa coming from Afrique, the prefix Afri, referring to the Afri, who are a group of Black African people in Algeria and Tunisia. And Tunisia was called Carthage. And Carthage is where you have Hannibal fighting against the Romans, and you have the Carthaginian Wars. And this is where the Carthaginian Wars is where we come into, we learn about Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus, Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus, and Africanus in Latin means belonging to Africa. And this Roman general Africanus, his family's last name was not Africanus, it was Scipio. He took his last name after the name of the area that he conquered because it was called Afrique in reference to the Afri, and the word Africa, ka denoting land, means land of the Afri. So I have a problem with the term African American because African people are the original people of America, and the word America goes back to the Los Amarisques, who are a group of Black African people in Nicaragua. So I don't have a problem with that term. As Professor James Small, one of my teachers, says in Hidden Colors 4, he says, African is my race. He said, I'm an African American. He said, African is my race. America is my geopolitical place. But I can break this down etymologically as well and historically. Okay, so what is culture? Culture deals with your traditions, spiritual systems, art, music, dance, folklore, mythology, cosmology, language, educational system, etc. Dr. Maureen Ba'ani teaches us that culture acts as an immune system, okay? It acts as an immune system, which keeps foreign elements from coming in and attacking you. It keeps foreign elements from coming in and attacking you. Culture is the glue or cohesiveness that binds a people together and tells them the only way they will survive is through self-reliance, okay? Culture is an immune system. It is the glue or cohesiveness that binds the people together and tells them the only way they will survive is through self-reliance. And this is why every ethnic group in America are the largest employers of their own people, the #1 employer of their own people. And their culture teaches them to fight for scarce wealth, power, and resources. And they understand that they're involved in a real life monopoly game where they have real winners and real losers. Okay, here is a famous statue of Asar, Aset, and Heru, who the Greeks called Osiris, Isis, and Horus, the first Holy Trinity. The story of them and the Immaculate Conception, the Virgin Birth, the Annunciation, the earliest stories of that goes back to at least 3300 BC in Nubia, Ta-Nehesi. We see a hijacking of Aset, and we see a hijacking of this from the TV show The Secrets of Isis from DC Comics. Used to come on Saturday mornings in the 1970s, the Shazam and Isis Hour. Shazam, the nicest hour. Okay. And we see this woman, this white woman who they told us her name was Isis. They said that she got her powers from ancient Egypt. That you see symbols from ancient Kemet here as well. Kemet meaning land of the blacks, one of the original names for Egypt. You also hear the term or see the term Ta Mary, which means the beloved land. You see in her headband, she has the